Ohara is a social introvert at the JTC travel agency who struggles with talking to people, so he is often yelled at by his manager Kurokawa and is frequently terrified by his co-worker Hanjoji glaring at him. In reality, Hanjoji is also an introvert with little interest in others. JTC's head office requires someone, preferably unmarried, to transfer to Alaska in 365 days. Ohara and Hanjoji both fear they will be chosen. Ohara admits to Hanjoji he plans to quit his job to avoid the transfer, but Hanjoji impulsively asks him to fake a relationship with her until someone else gets transferred. He eventually agrees, and Hanjoji convinces Kurokawa they are engaged but want it kept secret for personal reasons. Instead, Kurokawa throws them a party with their coworkers. Facing questions about their relationship, Hanjoji distracts everyone by singing karaoke. Hanjoji begins inventing the story of their fake first date, but would like him to think of the words he used for his fake proposal. Ohara is flustered as she already bought wedding rings. He suddenly thinks of the perfect words but cannot bring himself to say them out loud. Hanjoji is happy to wait until he is ready. Ohara receives an anonymous call from someone who knows their engagement is fake. Their co-worker Ganda asks to visit Ohara's home, so Hanjoji brings some of her things over to make it appear she spends time there. Ganda admits he needs help to ask their co-worker Kamiya on a date. After he leaves, Hanjoji admits she is confused why their co-workers seem obsessed with their relationship. Ohara suspects they view marriage as happiness, like when he spends time with his cat Kama, or when Hanjoji indulges her hobby of studying maps. Suddenly flustered around each other, they try to remember their relationship is fake. 2 weeks later, Ohara's father Koichi visits JTC, worried by a rumor Ohara got engaged. Hanjoji panics and lies, claiming to know nothing. However, she quickly feels guilty and takes Koichi to a coffee shop to wait for Ohara. Koichi turns out to have very traditional beliefs about marriage, as his eldest son Ohara must have a traditional wedding, a highly complex public ceremony which includes their whole village of over 200 people, otherwise their family will suffer dishonor. Hanjoji feels ill at the idea of such a public ordeal. Ohara rushes to the coffee shop. Koichi admits he was joking, and Aso village weddings are now much smaller events. Koichi recalls hearing about the wedding from the JTC branch near Aso. Ohara promises to visit Aso at the weekend. Ohara is asked to accompany Princess Claudia of Leifborg as she visits Tokyo. Kurokawa warns him Claudia is married but promiscuous. Hanjoji is unsure how to react. Realizing Claudia dislikes tourist attractions, Ohara takes her to a cat shrine, shopping arcade, and even a school rooftop. Hanjoji struggles with jealousy despite her and Ohara not being lovers. Ohara is glad the visit was successful, until Claudia asks to visit his home. Hanjoji convinces herself to visit Ohara's home, using the excuse of dropping off a gift, but rushes inside when she realizes Claudia is present. At first she is upset, until it turns out Claudia invited Hanjoji to meet her too, but Hanjoji never saw the messages. Claudia reveals she is considering divorcing her husband to live with her girlfriend Marie and settling down to a happy, normal marriage. After Claudia leaves, Hanjoji gives Ohara his gift, a frog-shaped stone, since Koichi told her Ohara loved frogs as a child. She then flees embarrassed, but Ohara finds her cute. Ganda asks Ohara about Aso, causing a misunderstanding among their co-workers that Hanjoji is meaning his parents. Ohara explains he is going alone, but Hanjoji receives an anonymous call reminding her they are being watched and that it would be better if Hanjoji went on the trip. Knowing she will probably have to apologize to Ohara's parents, Hanjoji makes sure to dress well. Hanjoji tells Ohara about her family. Her father was absent and her mother traveled for work, so Hanjoji would study maps to find all the places her mother was working. As soon as they get off the plane, they encounter Ohara's grandmother, Koichi's mother, and Hanjoji ends up blurting out the truth that she and Ohara are not really engaged. Seeming to ignore this, Grandma takes them to the family fruit shop where Hanjoji helps harvest melons. Grandma tells Hanjoji she is confident they will end up marrying. Knowing Ohara, she is certain he has feelings for Hanjoji, so being brave enough to visit could only mean he is planning to announce their engagement. He just does not realize it himself yet. Hanjoji is so shocked she passes out from heat stroke. Ohara carries her inside where Koichi suddenly arrives. Ohara admits they are not getting married. Koichi is furious, as they could have told him in the coffee shop. The doctor diagnoses exhaustion and insists she rest. Ohara admits the truth to his 2 older sisters and his mother. Hanjoji awakens and feels guilty he had to apologize alone. Despite the late hour, Hanjoji asks to go for a walk. Talking, Hanjoji starts to wonder if marriage is just 2 people who get along. Ohara almost admits something to her, but is distracted by all the frogs. Curious over what Ohara almost admitted, Hanjoji does not get any sleep. The next morning, Hanjoji finds herself fantasizing about Ohara's messy hair but quickly stops. As the flight home is not for hours, they visit Eso's Volcano Museum, where Hanjoji becomes unusually enthusiastic. A school trip causes a commotion, but Ohara proves adept at dealing with children, and together they give an impromptu geography lesson. On the drive back, Hanjoji fantasizes about his hair again. Ohara encounters Nao Miyama, a childhood friend. Nao teases him by ruffling his hair, causing Hanjoji to feel foolish for allowing herself to fantasize. Nao reveals she works as a glassmaker and will be visiting Tokyo for work experience, leaving Ohara and Hanjoji speechless from shock. Hanjoji decides to resist feeling anything for Ohara. Their co-worker Shinchi brags about his great marriage. The next day, JTC is thrown into chaos when Shinchi misses work, leaving a lot of customers inconvenienced. Shinchi's young son Hideo visits, revealing Shinchi's wife asked for a divorce. The usually quiet co-worker George sends Ohara with Hideo to look for Shinchi. Ohara realizes with his limited understanding of marriage, he cannot even begin to understand divorce or help Hideo. Eventually, all of GTC finds Shinchi drunk, but he runs away. Hanjoji ends up looking after Hideo and is reminded of her own parents arguing. George captures Shinchi, who returns to normal after seeing Hideo cry. Despite feeling terrible, Shinchi is forced to return home to talk with his wife. JTC announces its yearly interbranch display contest. Kurokawa decides their display will focus on the ocean, but everyone is still depressed after the Shinchi incident. George points out just because Shinchi was happy does not mean his wife was, and soon everyone has differing opinions about marriage. This only makes Ohara more confused, especially as he and Hanjoji are still not speaking. Hanjoji is startled when Nao appears from nowhere, desperately asking for her help. Nao cannot find her new apartment, which turns out to be in the building next door to Hanjoji's. Nao invites herself to Hanjoji's apartment for drinks. As Hanjoji nervously starts to become drunk, she reveals Ohara is so bad at communicating she cannot tell if he likes her or not. Also drunk, Nao calls Ohara and demands he visit Hanjoji's apartment. Nao then passes out. Ohara arrives and Hanjoji is still drunk enough she demands to know what he almost said in Aso. Ohara claims he was going to say he enjoyed their walk, which leaves Hanjoji disappointed. As they are talking again, Ohara admits the world is so confusing, he often cannot find the right words. Hanjoji admits she has experienced many disappointments, so it became easier to switch off her feelings, and yet with Ohara she's so confused all the time she cannot turn them off. Ohara abruptly asks her to be his real girlfriend. Internally, they both panic and spend over 10 minutes staring at each other with no idea what to say next. Ohara eventually leaves from sheer embarrassment, taking the unconscious Nao with him. Hanjoji passes out from the alcohol and stress. Ohara plans to spend his day off depressed at home, but Ganda visits to tell him about a new dating app. Ohara is shocked to learn most modern marriages started via dating apps. Ganda met a woman named Kaori on the app who is a fan of an idol group Ganda likes. Ohara finds the whole idea depressing. Amazingly, Kaori and Ganda hit it off and spend all day together. 3 days later, Ganda tells Ohara he wants to marry Kaori. Ohara is curious why Ganda wants to marry. Ganda admits he craves a stable family life to make up for his bad childhood. Ohara urges him to go for it if it makes him happy. Ganda asks Kaori to be his girlfriend with a view to marrying. Kaori reveals she is a single mother with a baby boy, so he needs to be certain he wants to marry her. After several days, Ganda arranges to meet Kaori again, but she sends her friend Ichika with the message he needs to not worry about her and she enjoyed meeting him. Ganda admits to Ohara he is not ready to marry. Since the moment he was faced with responsibility, he could not handle it and hurt Kaori. Seeing Ganda cry makes Ohara think about his feelings for Hanjoji. Nao finally catches up to Hanjoji to apologize and offers her a free glass-making class. With nothing else to do except worry about Ohara, Hanjoji accepts and meets Nao's mentor Hoshi. Glass-making turns out to be physically taxing, yet Hanjoji feels more clear-headed. She realizes turning off her emotions has stopped her from being able to make decisions. Hanjoji receives a surprise message from her mother Ritsu, who is visiting Tokyo and wishes to see her. Ritsu, an interior designer with a good-natured but overbearing personality, talks so much Hanjoji can barely respond. Hanjoji realizes she will probably never be as decisive as Ritsu about anything. Ritsu abruptly asks about marriage and warns Hanjoji choosing the right man is vital. Hanjoji misses several calls from Ohara, convincing him she is avoiding him. Ritsu eventually leaves but calls an unknown person to ask them about the rumor Hanjoji is getting married. Hanjoji feels guilty when she sees Ohara's missed calls and convinces herself Ohara cannot possibly have feelings for her, but has just been confused by their fake relationship. Becoming angry at him and at herself, she marches over to his apartment to reject him. Only when he opens the door, she instead asks him on a date. Ohara follows Hanjoji's instructions and meets her in Hamura City, where she reveals she will be touring Tamagawa Aqueduct, but he is free to go home if he finds it boring. Hanjoji plans to be her normal self all day without considering his feelings, hoping once Ohara sees the real her, he will change his mind. Ohara is fascinated by Hanjoji's passion for geography and especially her smile. Hanjoji mistakenly believes Ohara is bored and continues ignoring him, yet Ohara claims to be enjoying himself. Unable to understand, Hanjoji decides she will accept the transfer to Alaska and never see him again. Shocked by her own words, she cries as she realizes she wants to stay with him. Ohara decides to stop being afraid, grabs her hand, and they kiss. After getting over the shock, Hanjoji decides she needs to think about everything they have been through, leaving Ohara alone and bewildered. Hanjoji makes it home before completely losing her mind. Embarrassed, panicking, nervous, happy, and flustered. Kurokawa receives a phone call about Hanjoji and Ohara. At work, they are nervous as they keep thinking about the kiss. Kurokawa invites them both to discuss something very important. Kurokawa asks them to create an online blog about their careers and home life designed to show potential new recruits that JTC supports family values. They have no idea what to do since they do not have a home life, but refusing might draw attention from the anonymous phone caller. Hanjoji decides they should do the blog, meaning she has to move into Ohara's apartment. To prevent misunderstandings and situations, she creates strict rules, even setting up a tent as her private space. Hanjoji also faces Kama, Ohara's territorial pet cat, whose reaction to her presence is uncertain at best. Hanjoji discovers Ohara is an excellent cook since he collects exotic spices from different countries whenever he goes on vacation. They next struggle with using the bathroom, so they compromise by visiting a public bathhouse. Bedtime arrives with both of them worrying something might happen. Hanjoji retreats to her tent and they end up texting each other. Hanjoji struggles with the heat inside the insulated tent. Both consider asking the other if they can join them but cannot muster the courage. Hanjoji eventually escapes from her tent to cool down. Ohara wonders if things would be less difficult if they actually got married. Kurokawa takes the blog to her boss Mamoru as proof Hanjoji and Ohara are engaged. Mamoru decides Ganda will transfer to Alaska. Ohara is filled with guilt and ends up admitting everything to Kurokawa. Kurokawa reveals Hanjoji did exactly the same thing but tells them not to worry as she has already volunteered to go to Alaska, viewing it as an adventure for her and her husband. They end their fake engagement and Hanjoji moves out of Ohara's apartment but cries as she leaves. Ohara realizes he's letting fear control him and rushes after her to ask her to marry him. Hanjoji agrees and they both confess they love each other. They admit the truth to their co-workers but reveal this time their engagement is genuine. The anonymous caller congratulates Ohara on getting married for real. Unable to believe their good fortune, Ohara and Hanjoji act like love-struck teenagers. Ritsu is revealed to have been in contact with Kamiya, while their co-worker Kisuke is hinted to be the anonymous caller. Ohara's family are thrilled at the news, as are now Claudia and her girlfriend Nuri. Ohara and Hanjoji continue working at JTC together, only now they share a kiss every morning.